Is Call of Duty, or is Activision, scared of Battlefield 6? Well, if you'd ask anyone right now, the community sentiment would be absolutely. And in fact, if you look at the player numbers right now on Steam, there's 303,000 users right now on the open beta, whereas 26,000 people only playing Call of Duty right now, which is pretty much an all-time low. And especially compared to the open beta, having about 10 times as many players. So you would think the community sentiment would be, yeah, Call of Duty is running scared, and there's some evidence of that. But also, there's been internal leaks that say the higher ups at Activision are not scared, that they simply think Call of Duty is too big to fail. But at the same time, they are making other strange decisions, leaks are telling otherwise, and well, something they did yesterday doesn't quite line up with what they're saying. But if we look back through the past, should Call of Duty be scared of Battlefield? Well, let's look at history to decide that. Now, when Battlefield first started to see its monumental success, it was with Battlefield 3. The game sold incredibly well, coming in at 17 million copies. Now, this was in 2011, and this was in essentially the golden age, what people call, of Call of Duty. Now, the game that came out for Call of Duty that year was Modern Warfare 3, the original Modern Warfare 3. And while Battlefield 3 sold 17 million copies, Modern Warfare 3 almost sold 10 million more, coming in at 26.5 million copies. Now, as we moved into the next generations of consoles, the PlayStation 4 era, Battlefield 4 was announced, and it essentially just looked like more of Battlefield 3. Similar kind of game, similar kind of concept, with a new introduction to what they called Levolution, where a map would completely change after a meteoric event happened, like a giant building collapsing, for example. But this one only sold 14.8 million copies, where the game that it went up against was Call of Duty Ghost. Now, what's interesting is Call of Duty Ghost was never really received as a fan favorite Call of Duty, or even at the time a good Call of Duty. And for being the first game on PlayStation 4, everyone thought it was going to be a jump to the next generation, and it simply wasn't. Crazy part is it still sold 28.8 million copies, nearly doubling the amount of sales of Battlefield 4. Battlefield Hardline went quite the opposite way, only coming in at 4.1 million copies sold, and the same year having one of my favorite Call of Duty games ever to come out, being Call of Duty Black Ops 3 back in the year 2015, selling 43 million copies. Now, it's unclear whether or not some of those counted as the free-to-play copies, as it was free-to-play on PlayStation for a month. However, 43 million copies is 10 times more of the sales than Battlefield Hardline. So in other words, that year didn't go very well. But this isn't when it was over for Battlefield, because after this is when they really stepped up their game. Because the next year, in 2016, was when Call of Duty would announce Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And when they released this trailer, everyone was sick of what Call of Duty was pulling. They were sick of the futuristic warfare. They were sick of what they were doing. And what Battlefield always seems to do is look at what's going on with the current state of games and try to give players exactly what they want. And that is when they released one of the best trailers for a video game ever. Now, Battlefield 1 is by far the most successful Battlefield game for EA, and that was 25 million copies sold. But you want to know what the sad part is? Infinite Warfare still outsold it. Infinite Warfare was the #1 selling game that year, and Battlefield 1 was number 2. Now, you could argue that it wasn't actually Infinite Warfare that won people over that year, because when you got Infinite Warfare that year, you also got Modern Warfare Remastered, which also kind of played into it as well, which kind of brought back some nostalgia vibes. But still, it still outsold Battlefield 1. And what's more insane is that in the history of Call of Duty, there's only ever been 3 years where Call of Duty wasn't the #1 selling game. Number 1 is when GTA 5 was released. Number about 2 was when Red Dead 2 was released. In other words, whenever Rockstar releases a game, it's going to be the #1 selling game. There was also one other time that it happened, and that is when Hogwarts Legacy was released. But there was also another time that things changed, and that was after the release of Modern Warfare 2019. Because after this game came out, it wasn't just Call of Duty was the #1 selling game of the year. There was years where 2 Call of Duties were the #1 and #2 selling games. Now, when this happened, that is when I truly believe that Call of Duty started to become complacent. They stopped listening to their fans. They started becoming more egregious with microtransactions and putting microtransactions in the game that quite literally nobody asked for. This is one of their peaks of their massive success, but may be the beginning of their downfall. Now, there was one other game that I wanted to add to the list, and that was Battlefield 5. It sold 7.3 million copies, and with a lackluster year of Call of Duty at the exact same time, with Black Ops 4 being released, selling 14.3 million copies, it still nearly doubled the amount of Battlefield 5. So in other words, what I'm telling you here is Battlefield has never outsold Call of Duty. So I think that's why we see this sentiment in articles come out like this, where Activision leadership is quite literally saying Call of Duty is too big to fail. But this brings the question, what is failing for Call of Duty? Well, #1, if Battlefield outsells Call of Duty, that is going to be a major kick in the nuts. And in fact, Mike Ybarra, former president of Blizzard, tweeted saying Battlefield will boot stomp COD this year. But the real win here is COD won't be lazy anymore, and we'll get better FPS games for it. Now here's the truth, is I truly hope Battlefield 6 outsells Call of Duty. And the reason for that is because I'm sick of Call of Duty being complacent. I'm sick of them playing it safe and not listening to their audience and just doing the same thing year in and year out while putting more microtransactions in the game. I want to see the next evolution of Call of Duty, and that is not going to happen unless there is some sort of competition. The rising tide raises all ships, or however that saying actually goes. But remember how I mentioned that Call of Duty may be scared? Well, one of the things that happened over the past week is that Black Ops 7 started to put out viral marketing for the Guild. This is one of the factions that's going to be in Black Ops 7. And with it, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can go and click on their Instagram. When you go there, it'll show you a bunch of this viral marketing, and one of the posts that they put up yesterday was this. Something saying that today there was going to be some sort of reveal for the Guild, maybe the next trailer, something. However, if you look on their Instagram now, that post is gone. And I truly believe that the reason for that is because they were scared to put a new update or a new teaser live the same day that Battlefield was having a massive day for their beta, because it would just get drowned out by other things that are going on in the first-person shooter world. Now, it is possible that it is still going to go out today, but only time will tell for that one. But here's the question. Should Call of Duty be scared of what Battlefield has to offer? And I think the easy answer is yeah, absolutely. I truly believe this is the real first chance that Battlefield has of outselling Call of Duty, maybe ever. Maybe Battlefield 1 was the first time, but seemingly they are doing everything right. The setting of the game is perfect, with Black Ops 7 coming out this year and being a futuristic Call of Duty game, kind of similar to what happened with Infinite Warfare, having the modern shooter of Battlefield 6 in conjunction with having a campaign and their new portal mode as well, everything is seemingly lining up perfectly. Now, they are also doing the thing that Call of Duty seems to never do, which is listening to their audience. As complaints have come forward with Battlefield 6, like having class-locked weapons or not having class-locked weapons, instead of just giving it a definitive answer, they said, hey, we're going to put both in the game, and then you guys can decide what you actually want to play, which, in my opinion, is pretty much doing the right thing. Now, the other reason why Call of Duty should be worried is just the pure numbers. And what I mean by that is we saw in the first beta weekend, Battlefield 6 beat the highest player count on Steam ever recorded by Call of Duty. Now, I want to be clear that Call of Duty wasn't on Steam when Warzone was first released and when Modern Warfare 2019 was out, because I almost guarantee you the numbers would have been higher than this, but we can't see those numbers, so we can't compare those. Also, Twitch numbers. Again, Battlefield 6 had Twitch drops on, which enabled you to get a game key for the game. So again, those are a little bit skewed, but still just absolutely massive numbers, trumping numbers that we've seen from Call of Duty. Now, recently from leaks, it appears as though Call of Duty is trying to turn a corner and listen to their audience a little bit more. With recent rumors of what is going to be happening with the multiplayer, we've heard rumors of them actually removing tac sprint from the game, originally it being planned for the game and then it being removed. Again, nothing confirmed there. Rumors that score streaks will start to loop like they used to in Call of Duty, doors being removed, and much more. Maybe it's time that Call of Duty feels threatened and is actually listening to what people want. But at the same time, I've also heard rumors that the pick 10 system isn't returning, and that's something that people have been asking for years. So really, when it comes down to it, who knows? And with that viral marketing that we saw before getting less attention than really any other early marketing I've seen for a Call of Duty game, I don't really know what is next. And personally, I can't see a way that Battlefield 6 doesn't outsell Black Ops 7. But again, this is Call of Duty. And just to be clear, I think the worst thing for everyone would be if Black Ops 7 outsells Battlefield 6, because if it does, it means Call of Duty is still in a position where they can pretty much do anything, disappoint their audience year after year, and still sell more copies than any other game. But the one thing we do have to remember is no matter what happens between this war between Battlefield and Call of Duty, there is one other thing looming around the corner, and one other thing that will absolutely trump and tear down both of these games going into next year, and that is Grand Theft Auto 6. No matter what the numbers that we are seeing right now, I guarantee you GTA 6 will destroy the numbers of everything that we are seeing right now. And both games at that point will truly be humbled. Now, personally, if I'm being completely honest, I'm going to be playing both of these games when they come out this fall, but I'm curious if you're the kind of person that maybe only buys one game a year, wants a game that will carry you through the entire year. Are you going to be playing both of these? Are you going to be playing one of them? What are you thinking? Remember, no pre-orders. Are you one of those people? I am very curious. Do you think Call of Duty should be scared? After looking at the numbers and seeing what Call of Duty has done in the past, should Call of Duty be running and hiding and backtracking and trying to fix all of these things? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And as always, if you enjoy the video, all I ask is you hit the like button, subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all my videos. And until next time, peace.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making